I mean, it's just, oh, wow. He wants all of it.
He does.
How is it going? Welcome to Andreas Daily Poker, where I talk about poker news, poker life, and poker strategy. In today's video, I'm gonna bring you a hand that happened on PokerGO. It aired the last 2 days. It's the Super Highroller Cashgame that was played, and someone made a big fold, or didn't he? Let's have a look.
You're slow, man. What do you mean? I got one.
9-7 deuce with a couple of spades here. Oscar kicked off the party to 1400. Doesn't connect with that flop, nor does anyone else. As a round of checks brings the 3 of diamonds on the turn, and now Oscar has got himself a diamond draw, which is no good against Bob Bright's ace-high diamond draw. Another round of checks, and the diamonds get there, and this is going to be
poor
tragic.
Oscar, brutal. Right after the D Nags rundown too, and a checked pot for dessert where Bright could have let out with the Nutflush draw, didn't. So salty, Ali, for Mr. Ng. Unlucky.
The fuse has been lit, and there is a strong burning smell emanating from Oscar's stack.
Yeah, he goes something like 10 to 15. Looks like he went. Oh, man, oh no. Well, it's, I mean, he went up to 25. Did I see that right?
It looked beefier
did you
than
catch
that.
it? 25 300 and Bright just.
This
just
is
ecstatic.
a dream.
Yes, of course.
Bob's been sitting
nuts.
back most of the session. Just
yeah. How does he do it? How do you do it to somebody like this, Bob? 60 to 100K coming, Ali, and Oscar will find himself with a very awkward and brutal scenario.
I mean, it's just, oh, wow. He wants all of it.
He does. $166,000 jam from Bob Bright. Oscar Ng finds himself with the second nuts. Does he just fold right away, Oscar?
Yes.
Okay. Very well done. Doesn't waste any time.
How can Oscar make this fold here? He had the second nuts, right? I'm gonna give you 2 concepts that you can use in any poker hand to analyze the spot better. The first concept I'm giving you here is the context. Contextual understanding in poker is extremely important. Let's work it out street by street here. Before the flop, Oscar NG raises it up in a cutoff. Button flats, small blind who's bright here, cold calls. Yeah, I get it. He was in a big blind. And no, you didn't see it, Jimmy. Just pretend he was in the small blind. Now we go 3-way to the flop, where it's checked around. On the turn, it's again checked around. The turn in particular on this board here, deuce 9-7-3 with 2 diamonds and 2 spades, has implications because it caps Oscar's range because he could have semi-bluffed with a flush draw. So you always want to work out the context of any street and then the implications. Now we head to the river, which is the 4 of diamonds, completing a flush. Bright bets, Oscar NG raises, and then Bright thinks a little bit about it and jams all in. Also, the context should have the sizings in play, which are bet, I think 2/3 river, raise about 7x, really a big raise by Oscar here. And then the 3-bet shove on the river is also super big, which matters a lot. Like if the sizing were really, really small here, the river situation would be entirely different for Oscar here. Let's also talk about the pre-flop a little bit, because there a lot of the times context matters. Because here we are cutoff versus small blind. The small blind doesn't have the same hands as, for example, the big blind could have. Or the small blind also doesn't have the same hands as, for example, under the gun could have. The second concept is relative hand strength. Let's go directly to the river for this concept. And Bright bets 3,000, I think it's 2/3. And then Oscar NG has a hand that's really strong, the second nut flush. and relatively ahead of so many hands, so it goes out and raises for value on the bigger end, about 7x or even 9x, I think. So he's trying to get paid by a weaker hand. But now, as soon as Bright goes ahead and jams for 6 times that amount, for over 300 big blinds, if you want to think in those terms, then relatively speaking, our relative hand strength goes from a really, really nice hand to raise with to just a bluff catcher. That's the fun thing about this poker hand here, is you go from having a really, really solid raising hand to a bluff catcher, because you're not beating value bets here at all. Like, there's no other flushes that are weaker than yours that are gonna bet the river and then 3-bet shove for so much in this case. And obviously, when you have a bluff catcher, you are looking for the bluffs that your opponent could have, and let's do that now. All right, let's put it together. Bright cold called the small blind and now bets the river and then 3-bet shoves versus raise. What hands could he do that with exactly as a small blind cold caller? And I came up with these hands, of potential hands. It's either ace-4, ace-5, ace-7, ace-8, ace-10, ace-jack of diamonds. Ace-10 and ace-jack of diamonds might 3-bet before the flop, and ace-4, ace-5 of diamonds sometimes do that too for an aggressive player who puts out in a lot of 3-bets against button and cutoff. After looking at those, I would say, realistic 5 value combinations that are probably always going to be in there in this situation, in this context, I'm going to work out the bluffs or the potential bluffs. And I came up with these here. It's either any of these ace-10, ace-jack, ace-queen type of hands. Now, if you think that somebody's 3-betting ace-queen, you're just taking those away and it leaves you with about 6 combinations. Also, it wouldn't be mad to say that some people are also folding the ace-10 offsuit when the cutoff opens. Of course, some people might call, but they might also fold. So that leaves you between 3 and 9 potential bluffs. Now, also, let me say this on the river. I mean, I couldn't think of any other hand than these because it has to include ace of diamonds, and ace-king, I think everyone just 3-bets at almost 100% of the time. Now, these 9 bluff combinations are potential bluffs. For them to also be bluffed fully on the river, they also need to be bet in the first place. So once this 4 of diamonds hits, somebody with ace-queen with the ace of diamonds has to put out the bet, turning ace high, which might have very, very little showdown value, into a bluff, right? And then once getting raised for 7x that amount, has to put in a 6x 3-bet jam as a bluff, which seems absolutely crazy. And now looking at this price from Oscar's perspective, you know, that person has to do that with at least, I think, 4.5 combinations. Otherwise, we have a clear-cut fold. I hope that you can see that this fold is mostly standard and you should only consider calling and not the other way around, consider folding. And what I also need to say here is, if you change the context, it's obviously much different. If you make the small blind cold caller looser, for example, if you change it drastically to heads up, now the potential bluffs with the ace of diamonds in it go up from between 3 to 9 combinations to maybe 27, 30 combinations. And that makes it vastly different for this river spot. But as soon as we have a narrow range as a small blind cold call, then it just doesn't make that much sense to think that somebody would, you know, have so many potential bluffs here. And then the person still has to follow through. Whereas with the nuts, you know, it's quite likely that somebody would make this play. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me the thumbs up. And if you want to see more, subscribe, and then see you for the next one.